as the state struggles to get a grip on the situation? Let's debate.
Dr. Dalwai first.
Yeah. So if you look at these cases, the 62 children which you mentioned in Muzaffarnagar, in that area, this is something which is happening on a regular basis for the last so many years. And what's important to realize, there's a particular sequence that happens here. So this is largely happening in one particular part of Bihar, which is particularly children who are malnourished to start with. Then this happens just before the onset of the monsoons, where the heat and the humidity is beyond 40 degrees, as you're aware. And then there are these children who are out in the sun all day, who've been moving around, perhaps looking for food, perhaps trying to eat whatever they get their hands on.
Yes.
And then they come back home at night, perhaps going back to bed to sleep on an empty stomach because of poverty. And they're fine till that time. And in the wee hours of the morning, the mother notices these children to have an altered sensorium or almost drowsy or comatose or unconscious. Now, this is what is typically the maximum number of children that we are seeing. And like Dr. Singh said rightly, we call this the acute encephalopathy syndrome. And a large number of investigations done in these children, including the cerebrospinal fluid, did not isolate a virus in this particular thing which happens in this particular area every year. So what has been postulated is perhaps there is something that these children are eating out of poverty, out of malnourishment, out of ignorance, which on a malnourished body, which is already dehydrated because of the heat and lack of food, lack of glucose, is further leading to some kind of a brain damage, which is an acute onset like a kind of a toxin. And these children are, when they are brought to the hospital, by this time the glucose has already gone down, the brain has already been significantly damaged. Either these children succumb, or even if those who are able to salvage are left behind with severe morbidities. Now what Dr. Singh said about the SOP, I am happy he said that, because two of our colleagues, one is Dr. Jacob John, who is a internationally renowned virologist, and Dr. Arun Shah from Muzaffarnagar, have worked on this about 3-4 years back on behalf of the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and have submitted a report to the state government. But what seems to be ignored in this report, unfortunately, is that when the emergency strikes, we all run. When there's a fire, we rush fire engines to the place.
Yes.
But it has been clearly postulated that the only way of preventing this is to look at malnutrition, and preventing malnutrition should be the chief and the first priority of any state or national government.
Right.
Because it's these malnourished children who out of poverty are foraging for food and perhaps eat something which is causing a problem here. So it's not acute, and I want to draw the attention of the country to this point. Its medical care is not only about the ICU care. It's about a host of things that lead to ill health on part of the person, and then when they end up in the hospital, there are facilities which may be lacking, ministers may be blocking the door, as somebody said, and unfortunately you see what's happening in Bengal. The doctor on the scene gets blamed. So I think the SOP needs to be followed year around, and the SOP needs to include the preventive aspects, which the Indian Academy of Pediatrics has so clearly shared with the government.
Dr. Samir Dalwai.
Yeah, I just like to respond to this. Dr. Singh, I was listening to you. If it matter was not so tragic, I would be amused. I have a couple of points to reply to you, but I do believe you are saying it in right earnest, so please take this constructively. You said that every PHC in Bihar is very well equipped and all the things are in place. I request you, please call an international agency or employ somebody like a McKinsey or somebody like that to do an audit of your public health centers. And please, let's put it out in the open as a white paper. What is the state of PHCs in Bihar? And if what you are saying is true, probably you should get a Bharat Ratna for it and publish it. The Lancet will publish it. So please don't make such sweeping statements without any proof that all the PHCs, the government may be intending to do it. But please find and make an audit to find out what's the situation on the ground today. That's one. Second thing, I'm very impressed with these circulars being raised out. What are the crisis points for a child who's convulsing? Check him in the morning at 4 o'clock and see whether he's convulsing or not. What are we talking about? Are you talking about a metropolis like Mumbai or Delhi? You're talking about an area where people don't get food for 3 days, 4 days. Why are they out in the sun? You said let them be inside the house. Are they staying in an air-conditioned house? They probably have nothing else to do. These kids are going out to look for food. What are we talking about?
Right.
Let's be a little realistic here. It's impossible to, what directed the child should be rushed to the hospital. Is this particular child staying 5 minutes away from a metropolis and a hospital? It will take days for the guy to bring the child to the hospital, beg, borrow, steal some money from around, take a decision to leave the rest of his family back to fend for themselves, and then go to some city and then look around for a hospital and then get into a hospital. At every point he's badgered. Let's get realistic, please. I understand there's a challenge and I appreciate what your government is doing for it. So let's get realistic. This is poverty and the government is responsible. Health is a state subject and a national subject, and you've got your government at both the places. Your health budgets have been cut down. What is the government spending on public health? Just yoga is not going to prevent these children from dying. Let me tell you that.
Dr.
Yoga
Sunil
is not
Singh,
going to
please
prevent these
respond.
children from dying. They need food. What is the government doing to provide food to people who don't have money? And just these midday scheme. One more thing. Please, Dr. Singh, you're a colleague of mine. Let me tell you, the midday scheme it's beyond what is needed. The maximum amount of malnutrition is below first 2 years of life. Not 1.5-year-old child is going to school to get a midday meal. The three most important constituents of the population which lead to malnutrition in children are children below 2 years of age, but more than that, pregnant women. When they are carrying the baby in the womb, those 9 months, those are extremely important for malnutrition. And adolescent girls, because in India they get married at a very young age and have a baby. So please, for God's sake, get your concepts right. It's not the midday meal only. It's the malnutrition below 2 to 3 years of age. And I'd just like to offer the services of the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, who is willing to work hand in hand with the government of every state. We have branches in every part of the country. This is Dr. Arun Shah, who's a friend of mine. He's part of our executive board. We are willing to help you. It's not about the SOPs when the child is already in the intensive care unit. You better give him a good care when he's in the intensive care unit. But if you want to decrease this problem next year, please get the act right.
Right. So you need to get your act together is what Dr. Samir Dalwai is saying extremely emphatically. Please respond, Dr. Sunil Singh.
About the health of the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, I do consider these professional bodies should definitely act in tandem with the government to have the desired effect. I really appreciate your gesture when IAP said that they want to work in hand in hand with government.
There are a lot of questions that people have on the issue of having a fruit, the lychee, which is supposed to be a cause of encephalitis. Would you throw some light on how that works, Dr. Samir Dalwai?
Yeah, so though there's no exact proof that it's the lychee that causes it, there definitely has been talk of a neurotoxin which is probably prevalent in some of the fruits in that area. And like I mentioned to you, there's a paper that you can refer to by Dr. Jacob John and Dr. Arun Shah. That's not been proved. What matters is, why do children need to fall prey to such foodstuffs? And that's why I was a little, perhaps a bit more aggressive about the part about preventing the malnourishment in children, where they have to go around scavenging for food. And like, I completely agree, Dr. I'm glad there's a doctor on the debate, even from a political party. But the point is, I'm not sure whether these kids are in school, even when we talk about midday meals, whether these kids are in school and whether they're getting those meals. Coming back to the actual situation when they land up in the hospital, I'd like to say something a little contrary. Once there is a problem going on in the hospital, I think let the guys manage it. Distracting attention by getting guys from Delhi or from Mumbai, making it look like a disaster scene, is not what's needed. It's not like a physical disaster like a cyclone or an earthquake. It's a medical issue. And the guys who are there on the field, the local doctors, the local staff, know best how to deal with it. I only would say that perhaps the health minister himself or the health secretary should move closer to the location, of course not blocking the traffic, but after reaching there, monitor that if they need something more, whether they need something more is to decided by the local guys. I can't just pick up my bag and fly into Muzaffarpur and say that I'm going to offer my help. That doesn't work that way. So we need to give these guys support. I don't want to badger them either on the media or anywhere else. And again, I'd like to say the Indian Academy of Pediatrics is an association of 30,000 pediatricians from all across the country. We need to work on a long-term preventive issue for children's health. And that's where we would like to work with the governments and help well-meaning people like Dr. Singh help the government do something good about it.
Dr. Samir Dalwai, as we close this entire discussion, I want you to also talk about the vaccination part of it, because I think we need to make our viewers aware about, the early stage prevention. Is there anything that medically can help prevent encephalitis? If at all there is, what is it?
So the encephalitis, like Dr. Bagai said, is basically infection or inflammation of the brain. So there are various bacteria and viruses which cause this, and there are vaccines available against many of them in the government program as well as in the private. So my first message is, dear parents, please go ahead and vaccinate your child. There are no side effects. All this that is gossip or rumor mongering about vaccines. Please vaccinate your child. That's the single biggest thing. The second important thing is look at the hygiene and the nutrition of your child. If your child is well nourished, he is going to fight every possible infection much more stronger than any antibiotic that you could ever give. So make sure that your child is well nourished. When it's a season of summer, make sure that your child is not dehydrated. Watch for the child's behavior, watch for the child's urine output, and make sure that your child has 2 to 3 liters of water orally per day. Especially about 5 or 6 year old child would need to have plenty of water, and that needs to be looked into.
Right.
Younger
So nutrition,
children, mothers need to be
hydration,
aware that you need to
early
breastfeed the child for
vaccination
the
is
first 2 years.
important.